Today we're making an easy, clean and simple layered floral birthday card using a floral die set from Simon Says Stamp and distress inks. I'll show you how I shade the white die cuts to bring the flowers to life, then add a light lost shadow background for a subtle lift while still keeping that classic clean and simple white space feel. Finally, we'll layer everything together with a scalloped panel and a sentiment. If you enjoy floral designs, easy ink blending, and a soft background that enhances without overwhelming, let's get started. Hey everyone, it's Lean from ColoradoLean.com. Welcome back to the craft room. Today I'm going to start things off with what I usually do towards the end of the video, which is working with my card base. As always, I have 110-pound Recollections white cardstock for my base. It is 8.5 inches long, 5.5 inches tall, and scored down the middle at 4 1/4. To do my background on the card, I will be using the Modern Plaid 6x6 stamp from the Ton Stamps. And I'm going to keep it very light with Distress Ink Lost Shadow. I do want to make sure my card base stays closed, so I have a piece of Spellbinder's Best Ever Craft Tape, and I'm just going to place it inside my card. Now, I could easily put this into my Misty stamping tool, but I'm just going to work with it here on my desk. And I'm just going to ink up my stamp. All right, as you can see, it is nice and shiny, so there's plenty of ink on there. And I am going to carefully place my card base down. And I just have a piece of copy paper to place on top. I want to try my best to get even pressure. And as always, this is going to be, you get what you get and you don't cry over it. It could be perfect, it could be blotchy. Okay, so let's see. I am going to use my reverse tweezers to kind of pick that up. Okay, it's not really coming across very well, but I will definitely have pictures of this for you. So I am now going to set this aside to dry, and it will dry back a little bit farther, so it will be lighter when we're ready to put our card together. As I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to be using a Simon Says Stamp die set. This is the Etched Layered Daisy stem, and I love this adorable little flower. I'm going to go ahead and jump off camera and die cut that out of some of my 110-pound white Recollections card scraps. And I will be back with you in just a moment. Okay, I have 2 sets of the flowers and 2 sets of the stems die cut. And now I'm going to color them with some distress inks. And I have a variety of blending brushes that I'm going to use today. I have the waffle flower blending brushes. I have a makeup blending brush that I picked up at, I don't know, probably Walmart. And then I have 2 of the life-changing blending brushes from Picket Fence Studios. Took me a while. I've had those for a long time. I just, can't remember. So let's go ahead and start with our stems. Now, these are incredibly delicate pieces. And I wish they would have stayed in the cardstock pieces, but they did not. So I am going to carefully line them back up. And they are kind of bending up a little bit, so I'm going to have to be extra careful when I color these. So I'm going to start off with some Rustic Wilderness. And like I mentioned, this is going to be very simple, very easy blending. We aren't going to do anything fancy whatsoever. Well, maybe I'll do a little bit of something. I am going to come in and just hit the ends of my leaves. So that it looks like this. I am going to slip the other die cut in here and ink blend this. And I will be back with you for the flowers. For my flowers, I'm going to start with some scattered straw. And I'm just going to place this in the middle. And now for the petals, I'm going to use some aged mahogany. And I do want to start off with a light wash of color on the entire petal. And then I will come in and put more ink at the tips. And then I am going to go in one more time with my scattered straw and just deepen the color, especially of this top flower. All right, so now the moment of truth. Will my die cuts actually come out? I always worry about that when they don't come out right away. So I may or may not have to recut these. Yeah, this one flower is giving me a little bit of trouble. Oh, and I just ripped it. All right, I will recut that one. Well, I am going to have to jump off here and recut one of the back flowers. So I will do that, get that colored up, and I'll be right back with you. I have two more things that I want to add some ink to before we put everything away. I have cut out of the same 110-pound cardstock a scalloped rectangle with the Spellbinders Classic Large Scalloped Rectangle. It's the long Classic Large Scalloped Rectangle. That's a long title. And then I also have a small piece of cardstock that I'm going to use for my sentiment. This is cut to 1/2 inch tall and 2 3/4 inch wide. So with my waffle flower blending brush, I am going to add some Lost Shadow ink to both of these pieces. Okay, now I'm just going to add some color to this piece right here. All right, and now you can finally see that there is a little bit of color on there. Again, it is very subtle on camera. It's a little more prominent in person, but this is going to be absolutely stunning on the card. To glue our flowers together, I will be using some Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. And I've had this floral die set for a while, and I just recently figured out the correct way to glue the flowers together. So if we look at this top flower here, it's like a little person. There's the head, the arms, and the legs. So if we have one petal at the top, then we need one petal towards the bottom. And then we can line it up like that. So I am going to add some Barely Art glue to the center of my flower. And then I am going to kind of futz with it a little bit. And then press it in place. So it doesn't take long for the glue to dry. I still want to be careful with it, of course. But what I want to do now is kind of figure out how long my stem needs to be. And I think this one can be the full length. Or thereabouts. So I'm going to turn it over. And then with my tweezers, I'm just going to sneak in between the petals here and kind of pinch that in place. And then I'm just going to lift up the top of this stem and put my glue underneath. I am planning on adding adhesive to the back of the flower to put it onto my panel, so it does not have to be 100% perfect. So I will set that one aside. And then this flower is going to be off in this direction, but I do want to cut that stem a little bit so it's not quite as long. So I think I'll just take off that much. Yeah, I like that. And I'm going to kind of weave my leaf in and around the petals like that. I like how that looks. And again, I'm going to grab that with my tweezers and then just put a small dot of glue underneath. And now I want to stamp my sentiment. My go-to sentiments for delicate cards is always going to be Kaisercraft occasions. And of course, I'm going to use the happy birthday. However, this card design would look good with any sentiment for any occasion. So if you will recall, our sentiment strip is 1/2 inch. So I'm not even going to put this in here at the moment. I am going to line up my happy birthday. Get that straight. I am just going to line it up in here. Take a quick peek. Okay, I think that's going to be all right. And because there isn't a whole lot of room on here, I'm not even going to hold this down. So with my Ranger Distress Archival ink in Black Soot, I am going to ink my sentiment. And before I close the door, I'm going to make sure this is all the way into the corner. And then every time I stamp, I'll make sure it gets pushed into the corner. While I was stamping my sentiment, I couldn't help but notice this looked a little bit pink to me. So I took it out, turned it over, and sure enough, it's red. So I am going to throw this one away. I recut, re-inked, and re-stamped my sentiment. So now that we have all of our parts and pieces, let's start putting things together. I'm going to put some 1/4 inch score tape on the back of my sentiment. And then I'm also going to put a little line of 1/8 inch score tape on there as well. Now, the mat for my sentiment is a little under 3 inches. It could be 3 7/8, could be a little more, could be a little less. And that is just a preference. I just want a really small mat to kind of go along with the mat here on my rectangle. Okay, and there is my sentiment. All right, here is my card base. I think you might be able to tell that it has dried back quite a bit, actually. It is, as I mentioned before, easier for me to see in person. Make sure I get that focused again. And then I am going to line up my little rectangle here. And I do have 1/4 inch score tape on the back here. And I'm also going to put some some Barely Art glue on here just to give me a little bit of wiggle room. I find that's pretty important when it comes to placing images on my card base. Okay. All right, that looks pretty darn good. Now, because there's so much ink on there, I am going to apply some pressure just with my ruler, just to get that adhered down well. So I'm just going to kind of figure out where I want my flowers. And I think I'm going to put this first one down here. I'm going to put glue on the back petals. And then, of course, on my leaves and my stem, because I do want this down onto the rectangle. Okay, so we will plop that one right there. And I'm going to glue this one down as well. So again, on the leaves, the stems, and the back petals. And then this one I'm going to put right here. And then for my sentiment, I'm going to bring in my thin 3D foam squares. And I'm going to put these at the end. And again, I'm going to put a little bit of Barely Art glue on top of the foam. And because I'm going to cross over the stems, I'm going to add just a touch of glue on there to kind of hold down the middle. And this one I am just going to eyeball. I like how that looks. I think that's pretty. I really love how this card came together. Even with the inked card base, it still keeps that clean and simple feel with plenty of white space. The daisies really become the star of the show against the white and soft lost shadow background. Now, the only little downside for me is the cardstock. As I mentioned, I used Recollection for the entire card, and while I love that the shade of white matches perfectly from the base to the other pieces, it's not always the smoothest for an all-over ink blend. Compared to a sample I tried on Strathmore Bristol Vellum surface, this one looks just a little more blotchy to my eye. Now that said, I still think it turned out to be a really beautiful card. And it's a great reminder that sometimes the supplies we already have on hand can still create something lovely. Thank you so much for spending some creative time with me today. If you enjoyed this project, I'd love it if you'd give the video a thumbs up. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next tutorial. I'll see you soon.